Dan selanjutnya Bapak Ibu, kita akan langsung masuk kepada sesi panel diskusi yang kelima. Di mana topiknya adalah role of AI. Role of IA in overseeing optimization of public services. Ya, dan sesi ini akan dimoderatori oleh Bapak Sulistyo Biantoro. Kami persilahkan kepada Bapak Sulistyo Biantoro. Bapak Sulistyo Biantoro merupakan Chief Audit Eksekutif di PLN, posisi yang telah beliau jabat sejak April 2022 dan sebelumnya beliau pernah menjabat sebagai ahli dalam manajemen sumber daya manusia di PLN, pejabat sementara CEO PT Haleyora Power dan EFP Corporate Finance di PLN. Beliau juga memiliki beberapa sertifikasi penting termasuk juga Certified Internal Auditor, Certified Fraud Examiner, Chartered Accountant Indonesia, and Certified Public Accountant. Kami persilahkan dan berikan tepuk tangan sekali lagi untuk Bapak Sulistyo Biantoro.
Thank you everyone. Good morning. How are you today? Good? In Indonesia, we normally start the day with pantun. So I would like to give you a pantun. Walk in the beach, refresh your day. Nusa Dua is the right place to stay. If you need a brighter path today, IIA surely will get you the way. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Today, it is an honor for me to be present here, and we will have three esteemed speakers today. The first one is Pak Iwan. Pak Iwan Taufik Purwanto is the Deputy Head of BPKP for supervision of government agencies in the political, legal, security, human development, and cultural sectors. He holds various professional certifications, including CRMA, QIA, CGCAE, CIAE, FRMP, CGRE, CREL. Wow. He completed his MBA at Nanzan University, Japan, 2001. His Bachelor in Economics from University of Indonesia. He has undergone extensive overseas training in areas such as public accountability, internal audit, strategic planning, digital finance, and across various countries. Please welcome Pak Iwan Taufik Purwanto. And the second speakers today will have Pak Stephen Singh. Stephen Singh is a well-trained professional with more than 30 years of experience in all facets of internal audit, accounting, financial management, financial analysis. He holds an MBA in finance and investment and the professional qualification of FCCA. Pak Stephen Singh currently is President of the IIA Singapore. Please welcome Pak Stephen. And the third one, I would like to welcome Pak Rustam Effendi. Pak Rustam Effendi is a Secretary of Deputy Menko Marves, and he graduated from the State College of Accountancy in 1996, accountant from University of Indonesia, 2004. Please welcome Pak Rustam Effendi. Ladies and gentlemen, today we'll talk about the strategic role of internal audit in optimizing public policy. So, the session aims to provide an understanding and hopefully will set a light for us and how internal audit can be a strategic partner in improving the quality, the efficiency, and transparency of public service. So, without further ado, we'll hear three presenters today. Pak Iwan, you may deliver in Bahasa or in English. Please feel free, Pak. You have about 15 minutes, Pak. And then later on, Pak Stephen and Pak Rustam. Please, Pak.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Bali. Firstly, I would like to thank to the IIA, especially Mrs. Angela. Thanks you for having me today. It's an honor to be speaking here on this prestigious event. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to share our experiences and learn from each other. Today I will be speaking on behalf of BPKP, Government Internal Audit. I will be sharing our experiences in auditing government process and how our position as third line of defense, but we also involved in the second and first line during our assignment as the strategic partner and trusted advisor for the government. On a national level, we work together with ministries and agencies, as well as law enforcement agencies like KPK and the Attorney General Office or Kejaksaan. On a regional level, our representative office, such as in Bali, here Mr. Heru also attend. He is BPKP representative head in Provinsi Bali. Work with local governments or district governments. What makes BPKP different from the internal audit units in those entities is that BPKP oversees the cross-sectoral programs or policy on national level. For example, in the Inspectorate in the Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs is responsible to oversee the program and budget within the ministry. Similarly, the Inspectorate of Bali Province is responsible to oversee the programs and budget in Bali Province alone. But BPKP is responsible to the president, and the president's concerns involve nationwide policies. So the scope of the BPKP's audit are the entire programs and budget of Indonesia, both central and local governments, including the programs that involve the state-owned enterprises or BUMN and also BUMD. It is the government's duty to deliver public services and improve the people's welfare. And it is BPKP's duty to assist the government in achieving their targets and development goals. Next slide, please. Ladies and gentlemen, before I get into the details on how BPKP performs our rules, it is important to get the picture of the policy that is the context that we oversee. We know that Indonesia has to set the vision of Indonesian Emas or Golden Indonesia in 2045. Yeah. That Indonesia will become one of the 5 largest economies. To achieve this vision, we have to increase our GDP per capita and also to maintain our economic growth. We are currently to around 5% now, and we maintain it consistently. The President also has always stressed that we need to transform our economy. One of the strategies that Indonesia has chosen is through industrialization or hilirisasi. We need to increase the productivity to our industries and downstreaming our resources. That is already a big challenge to achieve. At the same time, we also have to reduce the poverty level from around 9.8% today to below 1%, say. And of course, we aim to reduce inequality or Gini ratio. That means improving the quality of education, healthcare, and job opportunities. We also committed to reduce emission to fight climate change. Indonesia has minister for each of those sectors, but by now we have understood that every policy that involves public welfare is always cross-sectoral, as seen in the picture. One policy's outcome can affect the outcome other policies. Let's take the policy to increase our economic growth, for example. The President has always stressed that we need to transfer our economy. One of the strategies that Indonesia has to choose is through industrialization, and we need to increase the productivity of our industries and downstreaming our resources. For that, we need energy supply to power for the factories, such as from PLN. And as of today, 84% of our energy supply is using fossil fuels, and the majority of our electricity system is from coal-fired power plants, and the transportation sector relies on gasoline. As the economic grows, so will the demand for the energy. However, we know that the human activities, particularly and the use of fossil fuels, create greenhouse gas emission. And as a result, we suffer an increase in respiratory tract infection or ISPA. According to the data from the Ministry of Health, between January to September 2023, we saw 1.5 million cases nationality. This is the impact from the fossil energy or pollution. If the situation is allowed to continue, it will stress our healthcare system and reduce the people quality of life. So what can we do, or what can we next done? The general consensus is we need to stop using fossil fuels, and this will be explained laterly from the Ministry of from the Ministry Coordination Ministry of Maritime and Investment. Low carbon economy, we would need radical transformation. Now, this context also affect our assignment from the planning and during the assignment and also the reporting of our assignment of BPKP. And this is the context that BPKP and also the internal audit from ministry and agencies to perform assignment together, collaboration, and have impact to the achievement of these goals, especially in 2045 of Golden Indonesia. So next, we to the next slide. As response to that, last year, the government issues the Presidential Regulation on National Development Risk Management, or MRPN, Presidential Regulation number 39, 2023. The framework this framework aims to integrate risk management across entities that handle strategic, cross-sectoral development programs, including state-owned enterprises. If we want national program to be successful, everyone must agree on shared goals and shared risks that we need to mitigate together. With different and often contending sectoral goal or interests, as we previously discussed, it would need constant communication among entities. And more importantly, it requires strong governance, internal control, and effective risk management on entity level. Before we can manage the risk, of course, we need to have the ability to manage risk in our organization. So the role of the internal audit is very important to have the prerequisites good governance on the entity level. The maturity risk management in the entity level will improve the implementation of national development risk management. Then this is according to the role of our function in the internal audit as the protector, by giving oversight and give comfort to our stakeholder. As the educator, through the insight, we give knowledge to our stakeholder. And as a strategic partner, we conduct foresight assessment to give solution or several alternative solutions to the management. Is that not only we in the third line, but also we sometimes to involve in the second and first line of the management in order to improve the good governance on the entity level and this impact to the national development risk management. Next slide, please. In providing the public service, we also know that the government now faces various changes when we name it the concept of VUCA. This VUCA also overcome with VUCA. Volatility with we overcome with the vision, uncertainty with the understanding, and complexity with clarity, and then ambiguity with agility. And in the right side is the strategic of BPKP, how to implement the vision, understanding, clarity, and agility, not only in internal BPKP, but also to the next after COVID, after COVID pandemic, with the internal auditors in the ministry, agencies, and also the local governments. Next slide, please. This is our result, Every year, BPKP conducts an evaluation of governance planning and budgeting. In 2023, we did the evaluation in 5 selected factors, including poverty eradication and food security. We evaluated 35 ministries and 542 local governments. That's all the local governments in Indonesia. We learned that we have a lot of homework to improve our planning and budgeting qualities. We still see government intervention not formulated with proper design. Some programs have wrong indicators or incorrect targets. Some programs have intervention or the outputs are not relevant with the intended outcome. What we want to stress in this result is, while we do have the output from those programs, the effect on the targeted outcome in the long term would be not optimal. Limited resources must be allocated wisely and accurately to the people so that it can give a significant impact to the people's welfare. We also stress urgency to valid data for planning, particularly in the intervention of poverty function. And also we conduct field evaluation to check the targeting accuracy, and we work together with ministries to improve targeting accuracy. We also integrate various social assistance databases with the integrated database in the Ministry of Social Affairs or Kementerian Sosial, so that instead of overlapping or certain persons receiving multiple social assistance programs, we could increase the coverage of social protection to more people with the same budget and reduce inclusion and exclusion errors. So, next slide, please. Two more slides, yeah. Naturally, not all government programs can be audited by BPKP because we also have limited resources. Just like government has to make priority, we also make priorities about audit focus. We formulating that we call a priority audit agenda or APP, audit agenda prioritas pembangunan, ya, pengawasan. It contains select national strategic programs that we will audit throughout the year based on their significance to people's welfare and national goals, as well as how likely fraud happens. That's how we prioritize our resources. And then every year, we adjust our priority based on the current strategic issues or what the President focuses on. This way, BPKP can make sure our resources are used to produce results that are relevant and benefit to our main stakeholders. And regularly, we deliver audit report to the President 5 times in a year. So every 3 months, we write a policy report to the President, which contains comprehensive and in-depth analysis on the effectiveness of government policies. The objective here is the bottlenecking, providing early warning then when we things are not working that the way they should and how to fix some of the problems. Lastly, next slide please. Okay, if we circle back to the vision of Golden Indonesia in 2045 and the complex pathway to achieve it, I believe that internal audit will play a crucial role. We position ourselves as the strategic partner and value driver for policymakers by providing valuable insights and actionable recommendations. This recommendation should aim to increase the effectiveness of internal controls and risk management, particularly also fraud prevention, leading to effective and efficient bureaucracy. Hopefully, it will signal a good quality of governance and increase investor confidence, leading to sustainable growth. One thing that we must take into account is that we must abide the standards. We must abide the standards or follow the standard to maintain the quality and effectiveness of internal audits. We follow the global standards and the standard issued by the government, Indonesian Government Internal Auditor Association or AAIP, and we also have internal regulation, performance standard that we issued in the 2019 and also other regulation. I think that's all that we will, my presentation deliver today, and we can go on. Thank you very much for your attention. Terima
Thank
kasih.
you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you Pak Iwan Taufik sudah menyampaikan bagaimana peran BPKP. He has conveyed the role of internal audit, BPKP as an internal audit, how to promote governance, internal control and risk management practices, prioritize areas, and then improving in planning and budgeting as well, and also continuously improving in competencies and capabilities of the internal auditors. And also he mentioned about the impact is what recommendation that has been provided should be followed up by the government. Thank you very much Pak Iwan, and then to next speakers, Pak Stephen.
Thank you very much. Maybe before I begin, can I have a show of hands? How many people here attending, working in either ministries, agencies, or state-owned companies? Can a show of hands? Not that we're going to mark you down. Okay, quite a fair bit as well. I mean, I guess it's 80% private, 20% public sector. So today, I'm the least qualified to talk about this topic, but I intend to wear two hats today. One is, from an IIA perspective, what are we expecting, or what we hope the public sector or the internal auditors from public sector do. Also, from a citizen perspective, in the sense of what would a general citizen expect the internal auditors of public sectors will do. Next slide, please. Whatever I'm going to say today, this is the reference point. This is the reference that I made into. This is the IIA Global website. If you are keen enough to understand what's going on, then please scan the QR code. It brings you to the website of IIA Global. A lot of articles written for public sectors. So in that sense, you're not alone. A lot of guidance given, and I give a bit of time to the audience to take the QR codes. Still taking. You're going to move faster than this, right? Okay, anyway, I understand. I fully understand, right? There are some expectation also. I'm using this to lead into my discussion. It is sometimes we feel that, the government sector somehow moves slower than the private sector. I don't know why, but for valid reasons, all right? Later on, we will discuss, and I try to actually highlight some of these so-called valid reasons that we can actually see what is the difference that internal auditors in private sector do, and also what the internal auditors, like even Pak Iwan, who's supposed to look at everyone in the government to manage what they do, all right? Next, please. Now, regardless whether you are from private sector or whether you work for the public sector, two evergreen discussions always come up, right? Being objective and being independent. So much until even the new standard has actually called this out separately in two principles just to manage this, yeah? And for auditors working within the ministry or working within the agency, sometimes I guess you sometimes get this question, whether you question yourself or your stakeholders start to question you. You report to the minister of that particular sector you're in, so how independent are you, right? So in a sense, you have to ask yourself honestly that whether you are independent in your positioning, and I also elaborate and expand a little bit more that how independent are you in the sense of expressing your opinion in your findings. So these two objectives, or rather this evergreen discussion I mean, it's common in private sector, as also I think is heavily challenged also in the public sector. And next, please. So in general, actually, I think what Iwan actually already, his presentation kind of sum up these slides already. What is the expectation? Now I'm wearing the hat of a citizen, right? What then is the expectation from a general residents of a country? Expect the internal auditors from different agencies or even the auditor general equivalent in different countries, expect them to do and expect them to deliver, all right? And basically from his slide, you already can see that there's a lot of I use the word, a lot of kind of like reporting. You know, he's already delivering that what the country is doing, how are we in a state of advancement, where are we, especially like he mentioned about COVID-19, you know, same in Singapore. During the COVID days, a lot of eyes are on the auditors because the government pushed in a lot of funds into the economy to keep certain industry afloat. For example, aviation, one of them, right? A big amount of money being pushed in. So a lot of eyes are on this to ensure that the funds are appropriately used and they are reasonably assigned, all right? Next, please. So how then we are going to, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. So therefore, the other slides I kind of like breeze through. And I didn't create this slide. This is also extracted from one of the article that I've shown you from the QR code in the Global IA resource. It kind of dictates, not dictate, but kind of like elaborated how every audit would have been done, right? Standards to follow. Pak Iwan also mentioned that there are a couple of standards, whether the government sets the standard, and also, you know, in that sense, IAA, GIAS standards, it is a very good guidance for everybody, not just public sector, but also the private sector, as a guardian to our work, and also, honestly, as a reference point, and also a basis, if ever your observation or findings or even the way that you work is being challenged, right? There is a basis where you can fall back into that, so that what the standard requires you to do, right? Similarly, a skip, and then it goes through all the way to recommendation, the audit report that comes. In Singapore as well, I just also learned in Indonesia as well. So the so-called Auditor General equivalent, you also issued audit reports where it's accessible by Indonesians, or rather anyone who have internet access. And also similarly in Singapore, we have Auditor General audit report issued on an annual basis where the general public like me can actually take a look what they actually look into and what is the focal point as well. Importantly for me, because we also wear a hat of like IAA president, and also I'm working in the IA industry, right? It kind of also show me what is the focal point of these government sectors, and did we also miss out from a private sector perspective? Did I actually miss out certain risk area that I didn't see, or at least in general whether we are aligned? So that actually served as a very interesting reference reading for me as well. So what I'm going to spend a little bit more is the outer parameter, the outer circle, right? Where, I don't know whether is it, I think you can read, but I can't. But in general, so I'm trying to draw a little bit of a differentiation between the activity that they do in private sector versus activities that they perform in public sector. Are they really that different? It kind of being confirmed by after Iwan actually presented, right? They also, public sector also have to do their own set of a risk assessment. Yeah, very likely that the risk assessment is in that sense of ranking, it may differ from what we have in the risk in focus discussion that we have, you know, like cybersecurity, human capital, and ESG. ESG is also part of the risk that I saw on his slides, yeah. The use of funds is very important because they then, in that sense, provide that assurance to the residents and assurance the residents and the citizens whether the funds from the government has been applied appropriately and with, I guess, with the the correct approval. All right. The other thing, one thing that in private sector, although we say we audit in align to company strategy, right? Actually, how many of you actually align to that strategy? You have to ask yourself. Honestly, sometimes we actually audit from more like a risk area, like, oh, procurement to pay because it's high risk. Why? Then you list down all the risks that you assess. From a public sector, it's very much different. You hear what Pak Iwan has mentioned, that the first thing and a couple of slides, and also what he mentioned, he's always aligned to Indonesia 2045. And I noticed this says that there is a very clear strategy and a very clear, I guess, objective even in the auditing and things to look out for with aligned with that so-called a country strategy, the vision of 2045, yeah? And the idea, I like the idea when I look at his slide that there's this thing called interagency cooperation, yeah? Because for him, he has to work with different internal audit department of different agencies, different ministries, maybe even the state-owned company. I don't know how far the scope or universe goes, yeah? So from that, we can already see that what in the public sector focus, that scope and universe just multiply in multiple folds compared to what we have in private sector. I give you a couple of examples. I have experience and I spoke to some CAEs in different ministries and agencies. Just very cyber security. Yeah, to us, yeah, in private sector, if we look into privilege account assessment, assignment, know whether we have multi-factor authentication. If it is not done, you put in the audit report, okay, let's do it, and then you get the issue get closed. On a national level, it's a different ball game. Yeah, any potential lapses in cybersecurity can lead to a leak of national security information, all very sensitive or very privileged information that is only available to a few of the authorized personnel. So same finding on cybersecurity, it carry different weight. So in that sense, I really respect what they are already doing. Yeah. Same thing. If we are talking about mismanagement of funds in the corporate world, okay, you spend a couple of millions more, you blow the budget, then we look for approval. If it is being approved exceptionally, is this done correctly? Not so good. Okay, then maybe you whack the auditors a little bit, and next year move on with life. But over here in public sector, I mean, when they manage and test on reasonableness of usage of funds, it is your money, right? It is the residents' money that they're talking about. In that sense, they are not just answering to that of whether money has been applied first against the budget, second, exceeded budget, is this being explained for, but also the usage of taxpayer money. You and I sitting here, we pay taxes. I guess a lot of you pay very high taxes as well, yeah? So these are the responsibility I see in public sectors where the internal auditors hold a lot of responsibility that I really salute to this group of heroes that we are talking about, just to share some lights on that. Also, another aspect I feel is, imagine when they are auditing their own ministries, or even like Pak Iwan, when they are auditing across ministries. Imagine if, let's say, they break the rules and regulations. These people, when they talk about not compliance to regulation, I think it's a big findings, right? Yeah. See the response. I just want to demonstrate that kind of responsibility that they have on their shoulder versus what we have, in the private sector. Not that ours are any easier, honestly. We have our stakeholders to answer to. We have our shareholders to answer to. There's a lot of responsibility as well. But for them, they even have to, in that sense, multiple folds answerable to, maybe not in the sense of answer to the general public, but it's really more the general public's eye on them, the expectation on what should they deliver and what should they talk about. Maurice-san actually mentioned, if something were to go wrong, the first thing, where is the internal auditor? Yeah, I guess in the public sector as well. If funds are being applied incorrectly, even less to the extreme, fraudulently, where's the Auditor General? You know, okay, let's set up a committee. So these are the risks. I just want to draw some differentiation between these two from this aspect, hopefully to paint some light as well, and allowing everybody to take a look at IAA global standards. Yeah, taking reference from there, then a lot of articles are available. Hopefully, it also coincides with what you're already doing. Otherwise, maybe you can make adjustment along the way as well. Next slide, please. It's a very easy way to conclude. Park Yu-won actually concluded everything for me already. Yeah, auditors from public sector, fundamentally responsible for almost everything in the country. You know, using of resources. When I use the word resources, meaning it covers all aspects, meaning monetary, yeah, human, even building up infrastructures, decision to make certain things. These are the things that they are general public expect them to do, and to have an eye over what the government is doing from that perspective, right? With that, I thank you very much. Next slide, please. Next. Yep, thank you very much. So happy to connect with you through LinkedIn, through the QR code. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. It's just right on time. Responsibly, effectively. How use the resources. I think it is resonate with the global international audit standard that, you know, today we mentioned clearly that internal audit and internal audit function has to serve the public interest. Thank you very much, Stephen. And then Pak Pak Rustam Effendi, without further ado, please, jika enjoy using bahasa, please feel free Pak, using bahasa, in English is okay. Go ahead Pak.
Boleh saya berdiri ya?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you Mr. Sulistyo for the time. For your information, my name is Rustam Effendi. I am Secretary to the Deputy Coordinating Ministry for Tourism and Creative Economy under Coordinating Ministry of Maritime and Investment Affairs. And first of all, I would like to say thank you, Mr. Angela, for your invitation. But we apologize because Pak Odo, the real speaker, cannot attend in this session injury time. So he asked me to deliver the material for the participant. Yeah, actually, I'm happy to be here, Mr. Sulistyo, because in this occasion I can share our program, and I can inform to the internal auditor from our stakeholder what we are expecting. So we can get feedback to develop the policy of tourism and creative economy. So if I see the audience mostly from Indonesia, so give your permission for your attendant from foreigner that I want to speak in bahasa. Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati, tugas Kementerian Koordinator adalah bagaimana mengkoordinasikan, mensinkronisasikan, dan mengendalikan kebijakan pemerintah dalam hal ini di bidang pariwisata dan ekonomi kreatif. Dan apa yang kami harapkan dari partner kami, stakeholder kami, internal audit, baik dari kementerian lembaga maupun dari pemerintah daerah dan badan usaha milik negara. Next slide. lanjut saja, ini yang saya sampaikan tadi bahwa peran Kemenko bukan eksekusi, bukan mengeksekusi program kegiatan tetapi mengordinasikan, mensinkronisasikan dan mengendalikan. Jadi Kemenko Marves itu membawai 7 kementerian lembaga, tetapi dalam prakteknya hampir seluruh kementerian lembaga bisa dikoordinasikan, bahkan pemerintah daerah, badan usaha dan swasta sekalipun. Next slide. Nah, apa yang kami kendalikan tentunya sejalan dengan program-program nasional yang sudah ditetapkan oleh pemerintah. Salah satunya agar pemerintah dapat fokus mengelola kawasan 5 destinasi pariwisata super prioritas. Ya, we have 5 super priority tourism destination, namely Borobudur, Lake Toba, Mandalika, Labuan Bajo, and Likupang. Dan kita punya 101 isu untuk 5 area tersebut Bapak Ibu. Di mana penyelesaiannya terkait dengan aksesibilitas, kemudian terkait dengan amenitas, dan juga konektivitas ataupun hal-hal lain, atraksi dan seterusnya. Itu tidak lepas dari bagian pariwisata dan ekonomi kreatif. Ini tren yang kami kawal Bapak Ibu dari 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024 juga akan kita selenggarakan Rakornas pengembangan 5 DPSP. Dan currently, right now in the same time, Mr. Odo accompany Mr. Luhut to open the first quality tourism conference in the Meru. So, he cannot attend in this time because the same time Mr. Luhut open this session. Okay. Nah, ini bicara tentang pengembangan 5 destinasi pariwisata berkualitas. Berkualitas itu apa? Nah, kita sedang menyusun standarnya untuk ASEAN minimal. Dan konferensi yang pertama ini akan kita lanjutkan annual di tahun-tahun berikutnya. Lanjut. Kemudian ini Bapak Ibu, kalau kita melihat ICOR kita itu masih rendah. Perlu jumlah investasi lebih besar untuk menghasilkan output yang sama. Sementara di fiscal multiplier terhadap ekonomi, ya dampak belanja pemerintah terhadap ekonomi ini relatif rendah dibandingkan dengan rata dunia. Sehingga kita harus mempunyai program-program terobosan untuk menjawab tantangan ini. Kalau boleh saya katakan, pariwisata Indonesia ini belum pulih pasca COVID. Sehingga kita harus berjuang keras, meskipun tren menunjukkan bahwa berbagai indikator telah membaik, tapi belum kembali. Tetapi dari jumlah wisatawan Nusantara, sudah lebih dari yang tercapai sebelum COVID 2019. Next slide. Ini Danau Toba, Borobudur, Mandalika, Labuan Bajo, dan Likupang. Bagaimana kita mengembangkan, kalau arahan Presiden pertama kan bagaimana menciptakan 10 Bali baru. Biar konsentrasi wisatawan itu tidak di Bali saja. Jadi saya mengundang Bapak Ibu, jangan hanya di Bali. Terlalu banyak destinasi yang kita punya di Indonesia ini. Ini baru 5 yang kita sampaikan. 5 ini masuk dalam RPJMN dan setelah 5 tahun akan masuk ke RPJMN berikutnya. Ini pun akan kita lanjutkan. Gitu loh. Jadi bagaimana kita mengenerate traffic di seluruh Indonesia, bagaimana kita mencapai target 1,25 miliar perjalanan Nusantara, wisatawan Nusantara. Next slide. Nah ini skema besar Bapak Ibu yang kita punya dengan menggelorakan, mengkampanyekan bangga berwisata di Indonesia. Kalau Bapak Ibu lihat di sini, saya tidak tahu Bapak Ibu di posisi mana, apakah ada di kementerian lembaga, apakah ada di swasta, apakah ada di pemerintah daerah, ataukah ada di entitas pendukung industri pariwisata masyarakat korporasi. Nah di sini internal audit masing-masing stakeholder kami ini sangat penting dalam mengawal program ini Bapak Ibu. Sehingga target 1,25 miliar perjalanan ini hanya bisa tercapai ketika kita berkolaborasi. Kalau tidak, tidak akan tercapai. Nah, target 1,25 miliar perjalanan ini sudah kita bagi per provinsi sampai dengan kabupaten kota, Bapak Ibu. Sehingga ada travel fair untuk mengenerate traffic, ada campaign, dan ada hal-hal yang lain yang kita lakukan. Harapannya ini bisa menjawab target 1,25 miliar perjalanan. Kenapa harus 1,25 perjalanan? Karena kalau kita bisa mencapai target itu, multiplier effect yang kita dapatkan itu sangat besar. Sehingga ini bisa meningkatkan pertumbuhan ekonomi kita. Next slide. Lalu pada aspek ekonomi kreatif Bapak Ibu, sebenarnya COVID ini juga blessing in disguise. Karena kita menyadari ketika COVID ternyata kita bisa bertahan dan UMKM ini menunjukkan pilar yang sangat kokoh, yang sangat kuat. Itulah kenapa kita mendorong UMKM onboarding dengan digitalisasi. Belanja-belanjanya mudah dan sebagainya. Tetapi di satu sisi kita juga dalam tanda kutip memaksa anggaran pemerintah daerah dan BUMN ini juga dialokasikan untuk membeli produk dalam negeri. Sehingga supply and demand-nya ini berimbang. Bahkan kebijakan terbaru arahan dari Presiden, kalau pemerintah, kementerian, lembaga itu harus membelanjakan 95% dari anggarannya untuk produk-produk dalam negeri. Kalau harus impor, paling tidak sampai dengan eselon 1 bahkan menteri yang harus memberikan approval. Jadi ini sebenarnya cara kita untuk mempertemukan antara supply dan demand, antara UMKM dan pemerintah, kementerian lembaga dalam business matching untuk penggunaan belanjanya. Next slide. Nah ini hanya beberapa contoh saja Bapak Ibu bagaimana kita mendampingi UMKM onboarding, tetapi meskipun kita menggelorakan bangga berwisata di Indonesia, bangga buatan Indonesia, tetapi kita juga harus mengkurasi produknya. Jangan sampai kita memaksa untuk beli tetapi karena dasar kasihan. Tetapi kita mengharapkan membeli tapi karena produknya bagus, produknya berkualitas, destinasinya bagus, wisatanya bagus. Jadi bukan karena kasihan kita membeli UMKM, tetapi karena memang kualitasnya bagus dan bisa bersaing. Next slide. Peningkatan belanja dalam negeri, ini hanya ilustrasi di tahun 2024 Bapak Ibu, bahwa total komitmen belanja produk dalam negeri oleh kementerian lembaga dan pemerintah daerah dan BUMN ini mencapai 1,550 triliun dengan realisasi 787 triliun. Dan ini mohon maaf Pak Deputi, Pak Kepala menyampaikan, jangan terbuai dengan angka ini. Karena ternyata Bapak Ibu, nah ini yang kami harapkan dari internal audit. Selama ini kami menggandeng BPKP Pak. Ternyata banyak bolong-bolongnya, banyak yang curi-curi gitu loh. Mengatakan ini produk dalam negeri tapi sebenarnya impor diganti name tag-nya, labelnya dan sebagainya. Nah ini internal audit BPKP yang selama ini banyak menemukan temuan-temuan yang seperti ini. Dan Presiden juga tahu tentang hal ini Pak. Sehingga kami berharap komitmen itu bisa diinternalisasikan bahwa kesadaran itu harus ada. Memang tidak mudah karena yang kita hadapi yang sudah berada di zona nyaman itu banyak sekali yang terganggu gitu. Next slide. Nah ini harapan kami Bapak Ibu dari Kemenko Marves. Yang pertama kalau bicara tentang internal audit itu kami berharap ada integritas yang terjaga dari sumber daya manusianya. Baru profesionalisme. Dan sebelum di Kemenko Marves, mohon izin share, saya juga bagian dari internal audit di Kemenq, di Direktorat Jenderal Bea dan Cukai. Hampir 2/3 karir saya itu saya habiskan di unit kepatuhan internal Pak. Jadi saya mengerti betul peran internal audit ini dalam mengawal program-program kementerian lembaga. Mungkin itu Pak harapan yang kami sampaikan. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much Pak Rustam Effendi. Deputy Secretary of Tourism and Creative Economy Affairs from Coordinating Ministry for Maritime Affairs and Investment. He was actually the internal auditor, so this is the right space for him. Thank you very much Pak Iwan Taufik, Pak Stephen Ching, and Pak Rustam Effendi for the presentation, and we'll now open the floor for the questions. Feel free to ask in Bahasa Indonesia or in English. This is an opportunity for us. Ya, Bapak ini, terus next. Ibu yang di belakang. Satu lagi. Oke, yang di belakangnya lagi. Yang pertama disebutkan nama dari asal Bapak, monggo. Nanti yang kedua Ibu yang pakai hijab, terus satu lagi di belakangnya ya. Ada mic?
Baik, terima kasih. Saya Teddy dari Bank Rakyat Indonesia. Saya senang mendengar materi pagi ini ya. Kalau di kami, di korporasi sudah mengenal lama good corporate governance. Nah, mungkin pertanyaannya apakah kita mungkin membawa menjadi good governance. Jadi di pemerintahannya. Karena sebetulnya three line of defense ini juga bisa dilakukan di pemerintahan. Seperti tadi dari Pak Rustam Effendi, dari first line-nya jelas sekali, perencanaannya matang gitu kan. Tinggal nanti di second line-nya, di risk management di level pemerintah, apakah mungkin ada suatu lembaga yang mengumpulkan data, kan tadi dikatakan bahwa kami saja di BUMN sudah di-assign untuk ikut iCover, ikut risk management yang sangat detail, yang data-data ini bisa dikumpulkan dari bawah ke atas. Nanti di level pemerintah, bisa data itu di-cross apa dianalisis yang saya kira jadi big data yang luar biasa. Apakah itu time series, apakah itu antar sektor gitu kan. Nah, third line-nya tadi yang Bapak Ibu sampaikan, bahwa auditor punya peran penting, tapi bagi tugasnya gimana? Supaya tidak saling cross-checking. BPKP, BPK, KPK gitu kan. Supaya ini inline gitu. Nah, mungkin pertanyaannya, siapa sebaiknya yang menjadi konduktor dari semua ini? Ataukah mungkin sekarang sudah ada konduktornya? Nah, seperti apa rencana ke depannya? Apakah memang ada rencana big data dan sebagainya? Mungkin yang untuk dari pembicara dari yang Singapura, if I'm not mistaken, in Singapore you also have a big data for government and SOE risk management, right? Like Temasek and stuff. Maybe you can elaborate in detail about this one. Thank you.
Thank you Pak. Jadi Pak Dedi?
Ya.
Pak Dedi. Makasih Pak Dedi. Ada pertanyaan tadi untuk Pak Iwan dengan Pak Stephen ya. Oke. Pertanyaan mungkin kita we may ask the next question first and then answering. Oke. Monggo sekalian yang Ibu.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum.
Okay, let me introduce myself. My name is Vita Ramayani. I'm from PT PLN Persero, also from the ACFA Indonesia chapter. Di sini saya punya dua pertanyaan. Yang pertama kepada Pak Iwan Taufik. Nah Pak, tadi kan sudah disampaikan ya terkait dengan overview di BPKP. Nah kalau kita tahu kan sekarang ini sedang agile era ya Pak. Jadi terkait dengan ESG audit maupun ada juga terkait dengan artificial intelligence. Nah di BPKP sendiri ini apakah organisasinya itu sudah bertransformasi mengikuti dengan zamannya sekarang ya Pak. Terus yang kedua, this is for Mr. Stephen Ching. You already said that there is, if there is something different opinion from internal audit in public sector and in stakeholders. So what is the biggest challenges as the internal auditor in public sector? Mungkin itu aja Pak, terima kasih, thank you.
Terima kasih Mbak Vita. Saya ini konflik of interest dari nunjuk itu ya. Oke. The next. Yang di belakang tadi, yang raise hand.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me
Salam.
introduce myself. My name is Firna. I'm from AIF Financial. I would like to ask Mr. Stephen Cheng. It's interesting to hear your story. That you're telling us that if you are giving example of how a review of certain area can have different impact in corporate and in public service. Let's say you're giving example on review of privilege ID, which could be a different impact and exposure. I was thinking, which I believe that could happen also in the other areas. And logically, I was thinking also that if the impact in the public service level is higher compared to the corporate, then the criteria of the and also the follow-up process should be tighter compared in the corporate. So I want to ask, what is the current state or what the current practice in the public service auditor in exercising that processes? And mungkin ini pertanyaannya juga untuk Pak Irfan Taufik dari BPKP, karena saya cukup awam juga untuk di public service auditor ini, jadi ingin tahu juga bagaimana cara public service auditor memastikan bahwa kriteria atau peraturan itu benar-benar di-comply dan follow up-nya apabila ada isu ditindaklanjuti. Terima kasih.
Thank you for the question. There are 3 questions. I think the first question regarding good government governance, about risk management practice, will be directed to Pak Iwan, Pak Iwan. And then I think Pak Rustam has to answer some of the question. What is the biggest challenge of internal audit in public sector? I would like to ask Pak Iwan first. Yes, Pak.
Untuk jawabnya bahasa Indonesia aja ya.
Bahasa Indonesia, ya bahasa.
Mulai yang kedua tadi ya, Pak Ibu siapa yang kedua? Bu Fita ya. Apakah di BPKP sudah ada transformasi organisasi itu? Yang penting sebenarnya transformasi pola pikir SDM-nya. Jadi para auditor kita, internal auditor kita, ini yang kita bawa untuk berpola pikir karena posisi BPKP kan sebagai internal auditornya presiden atau pemerintah. Jadi pola pikir report ataupun assignment yang kita lakukan itu ya harus menjawab kebutuhan dari stakeholder utama kita, yaitu Bapak Presiden. Nah, ini yang harus ditransformasikan dan kita sudah lakukan dari lesson learned yang kita peroleh saat adanya pandemi COVID, di mana seluruh upaya resources negara dan diarahkan oleh Bapak Presiden untuk menangani pandemi COVID ini. Nah, kalau kita pakai pola lama, hanya di third line of defense-nya kita turun nantilah setelah selesai, mungkin peran kita kurang optimal. Nah, dalam periode pandemi COVID ini juga IAE mengeluarkan peran atau bagian first, second, and third line itu di mana peran internal audit juga berinteraksi dengan second and first line gitu. Jadi yang utama itu kami sudah transformasi, tapi kalau struktur organisasi saya rasa itu tetap saja, yang penting orangnya gitu ya, di dalamnya bisa berkolaborasi, sinergi dan saling mengisi. Dan itu sudah kita lakukan, tidak terkotak-kotak, tidak ada silo, tetapi kita bersama-sama untuk mendeliver assignment maupun hasil pengawasan yang diperlukan bagi Bapak Presiden dan juga stakeholder yang lainnya. Kemudian yang kedua Pak Dedi ya, Pak Dedi mengenai sedikit saja nih tambahan, kalau di publik sebetulnya ada good public governance Pak, ini sedang dikembangkan, mungkin bersama-sama kami juga ikut berkontribusi bahkan ada Komite Nasional Kebijakan Governance, KNKG itu juga sedang merumuskan bersama. Namun yang bisa menjadi acuan untuk regulasinya, pertama ya penerapan sistem pengendalian internal pemerintah, ya, SPIP, sesuai dengan PP 60 tahun 2008. Nah yang terbaru yang tadi saya sampaikan, Perpres 39 tahun 2023 ya, tentang manajemen risiko pembangunan nasional. Di sana diatur nanti siapa yang akan menjadi koordinator dalam suatu tema prioritas nasional yang akan dikembangkan. Ya contohnya misalnya tadi disampaikan oleh Pak dari Deputi dari Menko Marinvest ya, super prioritas daerah pariwisata super prioritas. Nah ini dalam penerapan MRPN ini perlu ada yang mengkoordinasikan gitu ya, untuk nanti dalam penerapan good public governance-nya juga bisa dinilai. Ya dalam hal ini koordinasinya ada di Menko Marinvest. Nah kementerian lembaga yang terlibat mana saja termasuk BUMN dan BUMD juga nanti perlu saling sharing risiko yang teridentifikasi untuk bisa kita mitigasi dalam rangka mewujudkan DS, daerah pariwisata super prioritas tadi, DPSP. Ya mungkin infrastruktur yang kurang, mungkin penerbangan yang belum memenuhi dan seterusnya, atau kamar hotel dan sebagainya. Kalau kita mau buat international event di sana, nah tentu tidak hanya satu KL atau Pemda berikutan dengan atau perlu kolaborasi dan sinergi dengan kementerian dan lembaga lain. Nah terakhir tadi dari Bu siapa? Bu Dewi ya, bukan yang di belakang. Bagaimana kami BPKP memastikan kepatuhan terhadap kriteria dan rekomendasi yang ditindaklanjuti. Tadi dalam slide kami memang hal yang utama, rekomendasi ataupun saran dari BPKP itu menjadi sinyal ya untuk perbaikan tata kelola atau governance, di mana investor nanti akan menilai dan juga akan memberi kontribusi kepada pertumbuhan ekonomi kita. Nah kita lakukan monitoring terhadap tindak lanjut atas rekomendasi tersebut. Nah monitoringnya seperti apa tentu tektokan nih dengan teman-teman di Kemenko. Jadi terutama yang levelnya strategik lah, mungkin perlu kebijakan baru, revisi kebijakan, perlu lebih koordinasi, perlu menghilangkan silo-silonya. Nah ini yang bisa memaksa gitu ya untuk ditindaklanjuti enforcementnya. Kita harapkan dari teman-teman di Kementerian Koordinator, baik itu Menko Marinvest, kemudian PMK, Polhukam, maupun perekonomian sesuai dengan tema pengawasan yang kita sampaikan. Bahkan terkadang Bapak Sekap juga mengirimkan surat untuk menindaklanjuti rekomendasi dari BPKP sesuai dengan laporan yang disampaikan kepada Bapak Presiden. Di tingkat yang tertinggi, ya mungkin di level rapat terbatas lah, atau rapat intern dengan Bapak Presiden itu dijadikan pertimbangan hasil pengawasan kita untuk ditindaklanjuti sebagaimana tadi disampaikan oleh Pak Rustam ya. Terima kasih nih Pak Rustam sudah menampilkan gitu ya hasil pengawasan BPKP dan menjadi bahan koordinasi maupun pengendalian dan supervisi mungkin Pak ya, untuk lebih efektifnya tercapainya tujuan yang sudah kita sepakati bersama. Demikian Pak Moderator, terima kasih.
Thank you Pak Iwan. Pak Stephen, you may comment what's the biggest challenge and then practice in Singapore. Do you have any like a national data risk management and then
you want me to get in trouble, right? Okay, the question, I cannot really hear the question just now. Something about Temasek, something about...
Yeah, the first one is something about risk management.
Risk management.
Yeah, how the the audit can prioritize to areas that need more attention.
Yeah.
And then regarding the audit in the public sector, it seemed that internal audit should cover and look deeper. So what's different in your perspective, internal audit in public sector versus in the private sector?
It's a very good question. Actually, what I just before this, I was just talking to the executive director from IAA in Singapore. We have statistics that actually more and more public sector is also coming to IAA to, in a sense, take up courses, which is then in that sense relevant to more public sector, private sector per se. Yeah. Now, in the past, long time ago, if you exist 40 years ago, usually the government universe stays very different from the private universe. I think those old enough, right? And more, what I see from an IAA perspective right now, I'm wearing the hat, is a lot of public sector now getting relevance into current issues. For example, like you want to make sure that your risk assessment is also properly grounded, meaning attending COSO training, understanding what is ERM, and it also applies into your work in public sector. How is it managed in a sense? The other question was about how deep they should look into. I guess this question is also equally important in the private sector as well, right? It will never get enough, right? And what Maurice-san always say, just not always, but just now just also mentioned that if something happened that we were there, then something is wrong, that we didn't pick it up. But we always have the defense saying that because we work on sample basis, isn't it? Yeah. So similarly, I guess this has no difference between government sector and the private sector. But from a government perspective, I think I quote Iwan again. It's a lot of alignment to strategies and events that take place, or rather took place. Like I quote the example of COVID-19, a lot of eyes are on those areas. Cybersecurity is a big issue, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether it is news here, but I know in Singapore, even the government sector get hacked. I'm very sure in every country, yeah, there are a lot of attempts to hack the database of government body as well. So all this, is it enough? It's always not enough. But do we ensure that we stay relevant to the current risk? That's where I see the government, rather the public sector and the private sector coming closer and closer together. That they themselves, even sorry, I used the word they, but internal auditors from the public sector are also, coming closer to getting grounded to the so-called the current issues, the current trend. We all talk about risk assessment. We all talk about ESG risks. I'll be very surprised if any of the internal auditors of the public sector do not have this cyber risk as one of the top risks. So all these are coming closer and closer together. Of course, in depth and in the sense of magnitude of impact, sometimes it's different because I use that example again. Anything that goes wrong from a public sector, it can be a national security issue, right? From that perspective. Is that too?
I think, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Enough?
Excellent. So the public sector is currently, the governance of public sector is getting closer with the...
Precisely right. So therefore, the new standard itself is, when I read through the thing, especially for today's talk, then I realized that a lot of things are actually quite applicable to just internal auditors, regardless of whether it's public or private. Of course, in a sense, whether the reporting line and stuff like that, these are just being bounded. The limitation is just being bounded by the structure itself. But otherwise, the work that we do, we are quite similar. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Pak Rustam.
Ya, mungkin saya menambahkan apa yang disampaikan Pak Deputi Iwan dan menjawab sedikit yang disampaikan Pak Dedi ya. Dalam tataran praktek, Pak Deputi, saya mohon izin tadi Bapak sampaikan tentang manajemen risiko pembangunan nasional. Dan itu baru ditetapkan 2023 kalau tidak salah ya Pak ya. Sehingga kami berinisiatif itu kami exercise di DPSP Borobudur Pak. DPSP Borobudur. Kenapa? Kalau kita berhasil mengelola DPSP Borobudur, saya yakin DPSP yang lainnya akan dapat kita kelola dengan manajemen risiko pembangunan nasional. Kenapa? Yang pertama, Borobudur itu warisan dunia yang diakui oleh UNESCO. Jadi ada guidelines yang harus dipatuhi dalam mengembangkan pariwisata Borobudur. Yang kedua, candinya itu milik Kemendikbudristek. BMN-nya Kemendikbudristek. Tetapi taman di sekitarnya itu dikelola oleh BUMN, PTTWC, Taman Wisata Candi. Di luar pagar itu kewenangannya pemerintah daerah. Jadi mohon maaf Bapak Ibu, dari tahun 92, mohon maaf ini agak ekstrim ya, karena dari tahun 92 banyak konflik di situ Bapak Ibu. Sampai 6 kali ratas presiden belum selesai. Sehingga terakhir, ini mudah-mudahan segera selesai Bapak Ibu, terakhir Bapak Presiden mengamanatkan kepada Menko Marves, Pak Luhut, untuk membuat perpres pengganti 1192 dari tahun 92 itu Bapak Ibu. Bahkan itu tidak melalui izin prakarsa atau proksun. Jadi melalui pasal 66 penyusunan peraturan perundang-undangan. Jadi arahan Presiden. Dan sekarang sudah pada tahap Menteri. Nah di situ tergambar Bapak Ibu three line of defense tadi. Bagaimana TWC ditetapkan sebagai single destination management di Borobudur yang mengintegrasikan seluruh kawasan. Tetapi dia bertanggung jawab juga kepada Dewan Pengarah Menko Marves sebagai kepalanya, ketuanya. Nah dalam melaksanakan tata kelola sebagai penugasan presiden itu, nanti diaudit dan didampingi BPKP Pak. Di pasalnya, saya sampai ingat itu pasal 23 di draft itu, karena saya yang menyusun 2 tahun terakhir ini Bapak Ibu. Di pasal itu BPKP nanti mengaudit laporan TWC atas penugasan tata kelola kompleks Candi Borobudur. Kemudian dari Pemkap nanti mendapatkan pajak daerah dan retribusi. Nah dari TWC sendiri ada internal auditnya kan Pak. Sehingga semuanya ini menjadi kontrol, makanya tadi saya sampaikan ini hanya salah satu contoh praktek nyata yang kita inisiasi, yang kita organize, dan saya yakin ini bisa diterapkan di DPSP yang lain, 5 diantaranya begitu. Nanti 10 DPP, kalau RPJMN kan 10 DPP itu, tapi masih terlalu berat dalam 5 tahun terakhir. Nah nantilah 5 tahun ke depan akan kita kembangkan ke 5 DPP itu. Jadi Pemkap pun juga punya inspektoratnya untuk memastikan pertanggungjawaban pajak daerah dan retribusi itu. Dan ada momen nanti setiap 3 bulan ada diskusi panel di antara stakeholder terkait untuk memastikan governance. Dan sini kalau menjawab good governance atau good public governance, saya kira bisa terwakili Pak. Ini hanya praktek konkret yang sedang kita kerjakan. Mungkin itu Pak, terima kasih Pak.
Terima kasih Pak Rustam Effendi. Ini waktu sudah habis, tapi kita sudah banyak mendapatkan masukan dari presenter kita hari ini. Ya, jadi role of internal audit in overseeing optimization of public services. Kita udah dengar bahwa peran internal audit dari Pak Iwan memperbaiki governance-nya, tata kelola. Dan ini sangat fundamental karena ini akan menjadi sistematik proses yang kemudian bisa diulang oleh setiap lembaga, sehingga proses-proses mulai dari perencanaan, alokasi anggaran, eksekusinya, kemudian juga monitoringnya bisa lebih baik lagi. Kemudian kita juga mendapatkan masukan tadi bagaimana contoh nyata ya, contoh nyata alignment antara lini 1, lini 2, lini 3 di public sectors dari Pak Rustam Effendi. Kemudian juga Mr. Stephen Ching highlight how the internal audit has to oversee the use of resources responsibility and also the effectively from the public sector. Kemudian juga hal yang cukup penting tadi standar ya dari Pak Rustam, BPKP juga mempromot standar, dan ini kami yakin standarnya inline dengan standarnya IIA ini Pak, ya kan. Jadi ini kita sangat menunggu nanti bagaimana kita bersama-sama IIA dan juga BPKP promote governance dan juga tata kelola di public sector Pak Iwan. Again, thank you very much for the presenter today, Pak Iwan, Pak Stephen Ching, and Pak Rustam Effendi. Please give the big round of applause for them. Sekali lagi terima kasih, saya Sulistyo Biantoro bersama dengan para panelis mengucapkan terima kasih atas atensi rekan-rekan semua. Semoga acara ini bermanfaat buat kita semua. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Pak narasumber. Mohon berkenan tetap berada di atas panggung karena pihak panitia akan menyerahkan token apresiasi yang akan diserahkan oleh Ibu Dian Garneta. Kiranya berkenan untuk menyerahkan token of appreciation kepada para narasumber kita. Sudah luar biasa berbagi kepada kita mengenai urgensi, pentingnya peran dari auditor yang berintegritas menjaga program-program prioritas di negara ini. Terima kasih. Kita berikan tepuk tangan Bapak Ibu. Thank you Mr. Stephen Ching. Terima kasih banyak juga kami ucapkan kepada Bapak Sulistyo Biantoro. Baik, ayo persilakan untuk berfoto bersama. Gaya bebasnya mungkin biar lebih, nah gaya bebasnya. Baik, terima kasih. Ya, kita berikan tepuk tangan sekali lagi Bapak Ibu. Terima kasih banyak untuk moderator Bapak Sulistyo Biantoro. Terima kasih kepada para pembicara, Bapak Iwan Taufik Purwanto, Mr. Stephen Ching, thank you. Bapak Rustam Effendi, terima kasih. Serta juga terima kasih banyak Ibu Dian Garneta. Kami persilahkan untuk dapat kembali ke tempat.